Hey, good Friday afternoon, everybody. I'm KHOU11 meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with your tropical update. We've got Invest 93L out in the far western Caribbean. What that means is an area we'll be watching to likely become now Idalia in the Gulf of Mexico by early next week. Today is Friday, August the 25th, 2023. We haven't done this in a while. Let's go back and look at 2023's Atlantic hurricane season so far. By the numbers, 8 named storms so far out in the basin, plus 1 unnamed storm back in January, if you remember that. So this number is really 9. 1 hurricane so far, that was Don. And there are still just a little over 3 months left in the 2023 Atlantic season. We've got a lot to talk about in the basin right now, and one that's pretty close to home. Development odds have now been edged even higher, up to 80% now likely from the National Hurricane Center. That's what's been tagged 93L in the Western Caribbean, will drift north into the eastern Gulf of Mexico and develop into our next named storm, Idalia. Elsewhere in the basin, we've got Tropical Storm Franklin that's drifting north away from Hispaniola, expected to pass to the west of Bermuda, but by that time strengthening into our second hurricane of the season. And 2 other waves, both of which don't have particularly high development odds, and another wave looks to be coming out off the coast of Africa into the main development region in the next couple of days. So we've got development odds here within the next 2 days, 48 hours at 40% and 80% within the next 7 days. Here's our area of developing low pressure. Just to the south and southeast of Cancun, Mexico. It's expected to drift its way north. Some models have it meandering a little bit over the Yucatan and then slowly drifting north into the very warm Gulf of Mexico. Again, it's been tagged 93L, winds at 25. Again, it's not a storm yet. It's just an area of low pressure that's developing. You can see the spin a little bit more clearly when we switch things up to visible satellite. You can see that broad rotation here. Also, the Western Caribbean is very, very warm as well. Plenty of energy here for this to take advantage of as it continues to drift its way to the north. How do the models see things? Our 2 long-range models, the GFS and the European. Some changes coming with this one. We'll start with the GFS. This has seen the biggest change that for the last day or 2 has just shown a strewn out sheared wave, basically entering the eastern Gulf of Mexico. It's starting to change its tune a little bit, coming more in line with what's going on with the European model. So here's our area of low pressure developing north of the Yucatan, drifting north. Now it does show landfall potential much farther to the west than what the European is showing, potentially in the panhandle of Florida, near Pensacola, just to the west of Tallahassee. Potentially, this will certainly change, but this now by the GFS morning run shows that this is a possibility here, taking advantage of the very warm ocean waters. Now we've got the European that's been very consistent with development and intensification of a tropical system, still taking in the same general area, making landfall potentially to the north of Tampa. That would not be a good situation for Tampa, being on the dirty side of the storm, getting the onshore winds blowing all that water into Tampa Bay. This is right around midweek, so still plenty of time for this to change and see where it eventually adjusts once we get a defined center of circulation from 93L as it gradually develops. I want to overlay both of them now to show you how now we're starting to get a little more consistency or model agreement. Yesterday it was just pretty much the European and the Canadian showing something. Now the GFS is saying, you know what, I think you guys are onto something here. This is what I'm forecasting now. So this is the GFS model here that I just showed you, and this is the European in red. Not too far apart for this distance in time. We'll see if they come a little bit closer in line there, get better model agreement and higher forecast confidence as we get a little bit closer, but it's certainly something to watch. The warm ocean waters have been a concern all season long. All we needed was a spark to fire off pretty much what's a powder keg out there with plenty of energy for developing tropical systems. Water temperatures now in the Western Caribbean, are well above 80 degrees that's needed for tropical development, mid to even upper 80s south of Cuba. Then you get into the eastern Gulf of Mexico and it's even warmer. Sea surface temperatures there mostly in the upper 80s, and as you get closer to the coastline, those are up into the low 90s. So there's a surplus of energy to be utilized by developing systems. Even more so is that this warm water is not just on the skin of the ocean, it extends down through a depth, and why that's important with developing systems is because you get upwelling, you get mixing of the ocean waters with the turbulent wave action and winds that come with tropical systems. When that happens, it typically mixes up cooler waters from a depth, and it's self-limiting if the warm water is only at the surface of the ocean. When you have a situation like this with ocean heat content that extends down, in some cases, maybe 100 meters or more, you're just mixing up more warm water. So there's endless energy pretty much, and that means it's a higher likelihood that we can get a period of rapid intensification if in fact this storm develops in this general vicinity. You can see these chances here in terms of intensification possibilities getting up into the middle of that bar there with the warm waters down to a depth. So what do we do at this point in time? Monitor the forecast. Nothing is set in stone. Make sure you have your hurricane plan in order. If you live in Florida, this isn't the first time you've dealt with things like that. Last season, unfortunately, we had Ian in the Fort Myers area south of Tampa. So folks are used to this kind of outlook, so make sure you're prepared and you stay on top of the forecast. This is the area to monitor that as we go through the next couple of days. Now, it's not too far off. Usually we watch systems developing out in the main development region, and we have several days to monitor it. Right now, where this is located, this puts it within the reach of the United States within about 2 to 4 days, which is why we're looking at that time frame between Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So your window of time to prepare isn't particularly high. So we're just now starting to get some spaghetti plot models on this. It was just designated as an invest, and that's when the models start to generate output solutions. So we don't have very many right now, and you take this with a grain of salt, but it's generally showing what's in here so far, going with the GFS and the European output solutions so far. We'll get many more of these through the afternoon and the coming days as well. As you saw on the first slide of this show here, our next name on the list is Idalia, the I name storm. Okay, and those are infamous with being retired because they are so damaging and so impactful. Case in point, Ian last year, Ida in 2021. In fact, the I names are the most retired letter out of all of them. 13 retirements so far, plus iota back in 2020 when we used a Greek letter, so you can count that as an I or not. But needless to say, I'm not saying that this is going to be a massive system that gets retired. I'm just saying that the I name storms, where they come in the season, likely in the middle of the season with it being the 9th letter, we typically see them being able to take advantage of the overall ingredients that are in place this time of the year as we're getting closer to the peak of the season. I plotted all the I name storms, 13 of them that were retired. 7 of those made landfall along the Gulf Coast. Last 2 years, Ida and Ian, and there were 5 other ones out in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's the latest there. We'll keep you updated throughout the upcoming weekend. You can keep in touch on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. We'll see you again next time.